We're back with another tier list, re-ranking some of the weapons since I've used them more since I placed all of them on the tier list. I used some mods. We went ahead and modded the game, but we'll get to whatever it would be different when we get to the weapon. So let's just start off with Pushy, our one unarmed weapon we used that I feel like has changed. Pushy has like a specific little niche where if you're playing with difficulty mods that make it so that you can be more frail, Pushy is really good. Like if you're using J Sawyer Ultimate, that'll nerf your health, that'll make it so that you can activate legendary difficulty, and if you use things like JIP-LN, you can do localized head DTDR, which just makes you frail. Flatly. Pushy becomes like really important as like a distance control thing. You can rush in with the first attack and then get distance and then loop that. Unfortunately, I think this is really boring, and I think it's more so an issue with some of those difficulty mods not being balanced completely fairly, or in a way that flows right with unarmed combat. But I also do think that Pushy's DPS, like raw speed, I do think that there's an argument that if you were to invest into heavy-handed and not do a crit build with unarmed, that Pushy would be, not better, but it would be better than the two-step goodbye in that circumstance. We'll put it somewhere in A tier. No, I don't care about the order. It's not S tier though, because you still have to get through dangerous enemies to get it, and it's outclassed on a crit build. But I do think that with certain mods, it's much better, and also it's got its own little thing going on. The War Club. So there was one person in the comments that was like, "You downplayed the War Club, man," and it's like, yeah, I did. It's pretty good. You get insane speed off of it. It's not very strong. It's not even devastating on a crit build. I tested this one without any mods for the most part. So, like, not combat mods. So, you just get insane DPS. So, with Super Slam, you're gonna get a knockdown within 3 seconds. And then from there, you can just wail on them. It's basically Greased Lightning of melee weapons. I'd actually argue the War Club probably benefits more from heavy-handed than it does from a crit build. As crazy as that sounds. The War Club, because I was using this even with Elijah's melee perk, and the melee damage wasn't crazy. The crit damage wasn't crazy. Now, I have said before that the DLC are kind of their own thing, but with the consideration in mind that Honest Hearts, you can run in, because I've done this before, I've gone to Honest Hearts just to get Joshua Graham's armor. You can, and Light Shining in Darkness, you can just run in, kill Joshua, run up, kill Daniel, and leave in like 40 minutes. If you don't have any like movement speed mods, because that's just how long it takes to move through the area. So you can get it pretty easily. You can get it in like 40 minutes, right? And I was being thorough and killing everyone I saw. Whereas if you just ran, you could probably do it in like 20 or 30. So I will consider that. I don't think it's quite S tier though. You still have to go to a DLC, and if you're gonna go to the DLC and do Chaos and Zion, you're gonna fail the DLC. So I still don't think it's that great for like most runs, but I do think it is the best not S tier melee weapon. Considering that you would invest all the same perks for the War Club that you would for Gehenna, but then you also invest Pyromaniac, I think War Club is slightly better. Big Boomer. Okay. Where are like... Yeah, I think this is the I think this is like the least powerful break the game weapon. Big Boomer is really crazy. You almost have a guaranteed crit chance with it because each pellet individually chances to crit. And you have pretty much guaranteed and stay back knockdown as long as all of your pellets hit. Big Boomer is more so a melee weapon that uses gun mechanics, which sounds stupid, but Big Boomer is one of the most devastating weapons in the game. I've actually gotten addicted to using it. It is disgusting. It's not so great in VATS, so if you're a VATS junkie like me, you've got to get over that and just learn how to actually shoot. But, God, and stay back, shotgun surgeon, and then crit perks with the Big Boomer is one of the nastiest weapons you can get in the entire game. Assuming the Deathclaw doesn't hit you, you can point blank blow a Deathclaw's head off in one shot with this from full health. It's pretty bonkers. You can combine this with a coin shot or buckshot, not buckshot, magnum, and bypass even more DT, which is really helpful. On the runs where I would play with localized head DT DR from JIPLN, pretty much if you aimed at your head, at an opponent's head, this thing would just instantly splat them. Didn't matter how much HP they had, it pretty much instantly splatted them. And if it didn't, it knocked them down and you could run over and just blow their head off. It's also, I believe, not a hold-on weapon, but the sawed-off is. Which actually means we need to put the sawed-off higher. Where did sawed-off? It's like somewhere here. Because it's really easy to get the Big Boomer, but you can't sneak it into casinos. But if you use the Big Boomer in casinos, you're just going to turn everyone into paste. Because no one there has any armor ever. Big Boomer also has a really cool application where if you're fighting something like a Cazador and you're using, like, I don't know, some of these other guns, you can shoot the wings and cripple it and then switch to the Big Boomer and then wait for the Cazador to get close but not stab close, like where it'll poison you. And then you can just blow the Cazador's head off. It's so satisfying to use it that way. Big Boomer is S tier. This machine, I haven't specifically used this machine, but I have used the battle rifle. And if you're using VATS plus rifle perks, I'm gonna say that it's like actually kind of okay, but we're gonna put it here. And we're gonna raise the battle rifle. I think that for being an all-around useful weapon, the battle rifle is like, the moment you get it and meet the requirements, you can use it pretty much until you end up with like whatever stronger weapon. And it even, because of the ammo types it gets access to, you can use it on like a stealth build to like open a fight and then VATS with it. But giving up Contreras is really, really bad. And without mods, you have to give up Contreras to get this machine. Contreras is one of the only vendors that has access to Ultrajet, which is really good for VATS builds. And then Contreras sells over 10,000 12.7 mil rounds, and I'm pretty sure he sells close to 10,000 308 rounds at a time. So never under any circumstances give up Contreras if you want to use a 308 or 12.7 mil weapon. Or if you use chems. Gobi campaign. So I've said before that this isn't really a good stealth weapon, and I'm still right. But where's Christine's? They both have really strict requirements to get them. You gotta get there's like a stupid calc. Like if you're gonna use this, you're gonna have like a perception of 6. So like 8 perception plus 20 comprehension. And then outfit. So you have to have like at least 64, 67 lockpick to get it. Versus doing Old World Blues and getting out. If you rush Old World Blues, you can get out sort of quickly, just like Honest Hearts, but not really as quickly, and it's more difficult to do than Honest Hearts. So the thing about the Gobi, though, is you can get a guaranteed crit build as long as you can get your crit chance to 50. which I think even in the base game, with a luck of 10 finesse, what's in just the base game? Luck of 10 finesse, fight the power. First recon beret, Joshua Graham's armor, and then from there, I think you've almost got a full chance to crit with this. But you might need magazines to push it over the edge. Either way, you can pretty much almost guarantee crits with this. Which, unlike Christine's COS rifle, which is a good stealth opener and then turns into a VATS weapon, or the anti-material rifle, which is just one of the most disgusting damage per shot snipers in the game, the Gobi campaign is more like a mid-range VATS monster. If you invest in accuracy perks and crit perks. Sort of like how people hype up the Rat Slayer, but like it's actually going to damage things in the late game. The 12.7mm pistol is actually sort of comparable to the 12.7mm unique Little Devil. Both of which are going in the top tier. Not boosted by many specialization perks, so like you can't take Grunt or Cowboy or whatever. But your raw DPS is so crazy with these. This is also a good opportunity to talk about the fact that hollow point rounds are sort of weird, but hand loader JFP is kind of actually really good if you're doing a crits build. So if you're getting high crit rate with Little Devil, you should use JFP, which is damage times 1.65, DT times 2. And this is because unless you're using mods, the highest DT you'll encounter in the game are Brotherhood Paladins, who have about 30. But Little Devil will do around 70-ish damage per shot, probably higher. And then you add JHP, right? So that goes from like 70, 1.65, so like a little bit over 110. So it's 70 minus 30 versus 110 minus 60. And against anything weaker than like Brotherhood members, you're getting a flat damage bonus. So when you combine JFP with Little Devil's DPS, you can pretty much take down like Black Mountain, Deathclaws, pretty much anything with JFP rounds. It's pretty nuts. It's an insane VATS monster. But the 12.7mm has its own unique advantages. It's silenced, which means that if you use it as an opener with Professional and then stay hidden, you can consistently get those insane JFP sneak crits. Like you can stack Handloader JFP, Professional 20% sneak crit, and then better criticals. And instead of relying on getting a bunch of crits, you can just consistently get your sneak crits, which already have more damage. So even though it's slightly weaker, it has more of a build for stealth than the Little Devil does. Both really good. I was definitely sleeping on them. Hunting Revolver. Also S tier. It can get pretty good VATS accuracy. Very good at starting a fight. Sort of like the Gobi campaign. Because of the scope. It's got decent VATS usage. And whenever it's fully modded, it's actually kind of comparable to the Ranger Sequoia. But the difference is, you don't have to wait until level 20 for the Rangers to spawn, and you don't have to kill Hanlon to get it. The Hunting Revolver is also guaranteed in a few spots, I believe. At least the base version is. I know Red Lucy gives you a base version of the Hunting Revolver, but I'm mostly talking about the GRA modded version, which you can get from the gun runners at decent levels, and you can find from other vendors. But yeah, insane. If you combine Professional and Cowboy, your sneak crit damage is nuts. It's kind of like this, but instead of getting a bunch of sneak criticals, you'll get one that's like devastating. And then it's like still good past that to just use. You can also get one from Oris really early on if you use a trick we're going to talk about with another weapon. Sleepy Time. It was S tier. I figured out a utility for Sleepy Time that's like really. The thing is, you can get it the moment you're out of Vegas, so you can get this thing early. It uses 10 mil, which it's like, okay, but you get access to JFP, which means that against anything unarmored, this thing is just nuts. The bigger utility for it, though, is that if you get this thing right before going to Vault 34, you can just keep getting ammo from the soldier or the ghouls and all of the weapon boxes and stuff, and then eventually you can just chew your way through the vault with Sleepy Time. It's pretty cool. Especially if you have about at least 50 sneak, you can actually sneak your way through a good portion of that vault and just get guaranteed sneak criticals that just allow you to take on the enemies that you really shouldn't be fighting. Like, with sleep, if you just go gamble, get Sleepy Time, and then like maybe buy out the Gun Runner, Mick and Ralph's, and Blake's 10 mil, you can probably fight your way all the way to the Armory in Vault 34, because you don't actually have to have any skills to get to the Armory. And then once you get to the Armory, you get an insane amount of 10 mil there. So it's like this early game monster, and then from there it keeps stacking with like Professional, and then Hand Loader. It's surprisingly good, but it is too low power to actually use against armored opponents, really. If you're in the base game and you have no DT modifiers, though, you can still use it pretty well. It's pretty good the whole game. But you can't really get away with JFP on an armored opponent with this. I slept on Bozar. Once you meet the requirements, Bozar is actually a devastating weapon. The fact that it's got the most common ammo type in the game makes it really good. It's sort of like a worse All-American, where the trade-off is instead of having to fight through Vault 34 to get it, you just have to pay like 30,000 caps. They both have really insane skill requirements. Bozar has a high strength requirement too, but I think that they're both situationally similar weapons where you start off with a scope, get the sneak crit, and then you switch to like either holding down or squeezing the trigger, you know, just rapid firing. But I think the thing is, Bozar's spread is so ridiculously small for an automatic that you can actually queue up VATS sniping sequences and get away with it. Bozar is pretty good. I highly recommend Sweet Six Shooters Bozar reworked. It really is cool. I tweaked it a little bit and made it overpowered by accident, but even the way that they recommended to change it is pretty cool. But even just in vanilla with 556, this thing is pretty devastating. I do think that it is outclassed, but it's sort of like an alternative to the All-American if you also want to be able to spray and pray. .45 auto. So I started using this because I enabled mods that let me get DLC weapons in the base game. And I'm gonna say it's somewhere in A tier. It is one of the best automatic weapons ever, especially if you manage to get access to the super hand load for 45 auto ammo by doing Honest Hearts. You can get an insane amount of armor pierce, and then on top of that, it just does so much raw damage per shot that being an automatic makes it crazy. It's sort of like the shoulder mounted, where it does a decent amount of damage per shot, and then it's also slow automatic instead of being fast and low damage. This means that it also gets to take advantage of hollow point way more easily, instead of just being automatically neutered like most automatic weapons are by hollow point, which is pretty cool. Ultimately, you're still probably going to end up capping out with like Bozar or another weapon, but the 45 auto is, I was sleeping on it. It's really strong for a guns build. And even in vanilla, you just got to run to Honest Hearts and then hope you find a white leg with this. That's it. Survivalist Rifle is actually one that you can get on the 40-minute thing with Joshua Graham. It's sort of like an All-American, but more for mid to close range. And instead of being low damage that you can use like 14 times in VATS, it's really high damage that you get a medium amount of VATS usage out of. It's really high damage means that just like Little Devil, it gets to benefit from JFP. Being a survivalist rifle or a service rifle, it also gets a really good jury rigging pool, which is something we haven't talked about, but all these weapons are pretty accessible for jury rigging. Even Big Boomer, especially Big Boomer. It's just really strong. I mean, that's all there is to it. And it's really easy to get. Like, if you just go in, kill Joshua, kill Daniel, fast travel back to the exit, you can run down, circle, get down, go up to the red gate and pick it up just then, and leave, like, under an hour. So it's really easy to get. 75 guns is a big steep, and 12.7 is going to be difficult to do if you turn in Contreras, but if you don't turn in Contreras, this is like a free win button. It's pretty devastating. Light Shining in Darkness is pretty much, when compared to Little Devil, slightly less damage, higher DPS, better crit chances, slightly better in VATS, better ammo. If you do Honest Hearts the right way, you get access to something called 45 auto super hand load, and it allows you to bypass like 6 DT. So that means it gets pretty much everything. You're just doing raw damage. On top of that, it does more damage by default. And I think it makes your spread lower, but I could be mistaken. Either way, it's essentially a way harder to get Little Devil that's slightly better in certain circumstances. The problem is if you use Light Shining in the Darkness that you need to get the 45 auto super hand load, so I'm actually going to put it below the other one-handed weapons. Because you actually specifically have to do Honest Hearts the right way to get it. Granted, Honest Hearts the right way is only like 2 hours, but still a little annoying. But when used correctly, Light Shining in the Darkness is one of the craziest guns in the game. It's too strong not to put this high. So I was downplaying the laser rifle. In vanilla, with the game as easy as it is, the moment you get a laser rifle that's GRA, you can, I think GRA. I don't remember if the laser rifle is GRA or not. The moment that you get a laser rifle, you can just mod it and then keep it, and that's your gun for the rest of the game. Pretty high crit chance. Pretty low gun spread once you get certain things. The scope makes sniping really easy. If you use another weapon to get set lasers for fun 1, Beam Weapon Me Up gets to set lasers for fun 2. Combine that with Laser Commander, Finesse, the usual. It turns into a pretty devastating weapon to start a battle with, and then from there you can just... You could probably just VATS your opponent to death before they reach you. So, I would put it at least A tier. I do think that in terms of a crit build, it's a little outclassed by AER-14. It's definitely outclassed by Tri-Beam and the Lair. But it's like actually really good early on because it only has a 25 weapon requirement. Laser RCW is like a slightly stronger MF Hyperbreeder that can be given max charge ammo, but it also breaks down, and finding the mods are difficult. So I'm going to put it in A tier. I do think that the MF Hyperbreeder is all around a better weapon just for the low effort like maintenance of it. Its early availability and the fact that you don't have to worry about ammo types. Not to mention the MF, depending, I think it needs patches, but it's supposed to be capable of working with Professional. which combined with all the other crit things you can do with laser weapons in particular makes the MF too strong. But it just, the laser RCW is essentially like, it's hard to say how it feels in comparison to the Gatling laser, but it's surprisingly strong. It now that I've actually used it, it really does just feel like a Gatling laser that's not like 20 pounds. The laser RCW also seems to crit a little bit more often than the MF or the Gatling laser did, but that might just be placebo. Hard to say, but you can put max charge in the laser RCW unlike the MF, and I believe they have a similar weapon requirement, so if you're like hyper optimizing your build, you might use max charge laser RCW when you get access to it instead of MF, but there is also the argument that that's not really a good idea. Any weapon that uses ECP is going to want to save as much ammo as possible for it. So if you're going to go from like the MF to the RCW to the Gatling laser, you would honestly rather just use the MF for like the duration of the RCW and save all that ammo, because you'll really chew through ammo with the Gatling laser. So I honestly think this is still not really that great. Even though it's actually a really effective weapon, like the circumstances around it make it kind of not good, if that makes sense. Q35 is S tier. So it's not that strong. It's like that gun, essentially, where it can get to a guaranteed crit rate. Unless I'm mistaken. And then it's insanely accurate in VATS. And it's got a very low spread. That's the big reason I didn't like plasma weapons, is because it always felt like they shot everywhere, but I guess that's just a multi-plas. The Q35 is disgusting in VATS. I think with VATS you can actually get this thing to crit every time. Not to mention with plasma spaz it becomes a VATS weapon. It's available from literally level 1. You have to go to RepCon, talk to the person to get a tour, then take up Janet Miller's keycard, which gets you to the second floor. The robots will recognize you as Mrs. Miller. You can get the 3rd level key card. I think all you need is a luck of 7+, which isn't that hard to have. In vanilla, you're going to have a luck of 7+. Because the lowest you would set your luck to if you're doing like any kind of crit build or weapon build is 7. But yeah, you can get this thing like level 1. It's pretty good. It's ammo efficient more than anything. It only uses 1 microfusion per shot. And like even late game when you're using something like a plasma caster or a multi-plas, you can still keep this around and just use bulk rounds on it and take care of weak enemies that way. So that you don't like break down your really expensive weapon or your really powerful like ammo consuming weapon on like random ghouls, you know? It's still got that utility to it too. It's really good at every point in the game. Multi-plas, so full disclosure, I use this with a mod called Energy Scattershot by Sweet Six Shooter, where the Tri-Beam and Multi-plas were reworked to work with Shotgun Surgeon and Aim Stayback. And when you combine both of those with Plasma Spaz, the Multi-plas just like eviscerates any enemy's head in VATS. And it's like still pretty good to just shoot at a torso. So like I think with that mod it's S tier, but otherwise it's just A tier. It's got a really bad spread. So it really is like an energy shotgun, even in vanilla. But it does a decent amount of damage. It's got lower weapon requirements than I remembered. It's actually 50. So you can use this pretty early on in a build. Say that you're going to cap out with like the Gauss rifle. You can use this at level 50 because, you know, it'd probably be more effective than most energy weapons at 50 if you're not investing into, or laser weapons at 50 if you're not investing into laser perks. So there's that at least. Guaranteed locations. You can get this from the follower safe house, or you can get it from the central sewers. So it's also got guaranteed spots that are actually obtainable early, not the Deathclaw Promontory one. AER-14 is essentially what I think people were talking about when they talk about how good the laser rifle is early on. Available really early. Important thing is that you meet the weapon requirements so you can actually use it in VATS. It's a really good weapon. If you're going to use one-handed energy weapons, like laser weapons, and you want to get the second rank of set lasers for fun, going to Vault 22 and getting this and then using bulk rounds is a really good way to do that. Just making sure you get a sneak crit and then switching to like your effective weapon, you'll rack up the damage in no time. It's pretty good, and I also just have points for it because it's really cool looking. There is an argument to be made if you have like the worse accuracy enabled for tri-beam and for the tri-beam that this is actually a better weapon than the tri-beam. Probably not the layer, but maybe the base tri-beam. And I actually wouldn't have much of a problem with that. Again, like all energy weapons, you can put max charge in this and it becomes insanely good. It's available really early and has low requirements strength-wise and skill-wise. I think we're actually going to bump this into S tier. It's really good. So Pew Pew, when you max out the requirements, is like here. Pew Pew is disgusting. You can, in both of your shots, you can kill a Deathclaw. But, the problem is, getting 50 star caps is annoying. If you're just trying to test out the weapon, it leads to like 2 hours of running around the map like a chicken with your head cut off, just trying to find star caps. It's really annoying. And that's the crazy thing, is Pew Pew has no weapon requirement. It's literally 0 skill and 1 strength. So you can effectively use this the moment you get access to it. It's just getting 50 star caps, which, in a way, I would actually say it's easier to get the Ranger Sequoia than it is to get Pew Pew. Because at least with the Ranger Sequoia, you can do Return to Sender at any level. Getting to level 20 isn't that difficult. You just have to rush the strip. But Pew Pew is just fucking annoying to get. So it has to be gate kept. But it is like one of the best weapons in the game. It's really good. Plasma Defender is also S tier. Available decently early, if you know where to look. Pretty sure it's guaranteed in the Van Graff store. Very low spread, very low AP cost in VATS. Plasma Spaz makes this insane. You can put max charge ammo in it. The thing I like the most about it is that it's boosted by Professional and it gets a scope. So it's sort of like the Hunting Revolver. But unlike the Hunting Revolver, once you get that sneak crit off, it transforms into like a little devil that you can just rapid fire. So it's like an incredible energy weapon. I kind of get why Arcade just sort of spams this thing now. Nuka Grenade! We didn't use Nuka Grenades, but I'm going to put this as explosive weapons used in reverse pickpocketing. It is one of the funnest things to do in the game. I just never chanced pickpocketing in vanilla because I just don't like it. It just feels annoying to not know if you're going to succeed or not. But with Stewie Tweaks, you can enable pickpocket overhaul. And whenever you see 85 on an explosive in your inventory, you just kind of want to do it, even if the person doesn't deserve it. It's so fun to place it and then hear the person freak out and then just run off and just the screen shakes and it changes to like the slow-mo death cam. One of the funnest applications of placed explosions is how little we know. There's the part where you talk to Cucino and he's like, alright, let's go take care of the bosses. And then he takes like a minute to walk up there. But if you're a patient, you can just run up to Big Saul, because you won't be hostile, and put an explosive in his pocket and run off, and the two of them will die. And like everything in Gamora is just scattered everywhere because of it. It's so fun. It's also insanely overpowered. Literally any explosive is just a guaranteed kill if you get it on the person. And like stronger things like frag grenades will kill people around them too. I can only imagine what like mini nukes and stuff would do in a pocket, like the fat nukes or the fat mines. But yeah, placed explosives are S tier. Probably overall the least practical of all of these, but oh my god, it's so much fun and it's effective. I have harder strip access, which is a mod that makes it harder to get onto the strip. And one of the things is you basically end up having to get the king to get you onto the strip if you want to do it early. So you have to get rid of Oris, but because you don't have the speech, the skills to get through Oris, and you can't fight Oris plus all of his goons, chancing the placed explosive on him is one of the funnest things to do. It's actually useful too. And with how little we know, that's actually a really tough encounter early on. Especially with things like J-Sawyer Ultimate where your health is really like bad. So placed explosives are actually like, I'm not saying all explosives are good, but when you have them to carry around and you put them in someone's pocket, they become like S tier. MFC clusters are actually available because of DLC weapon integration. And they're not very strong because of that, but with their original damage and how easy they are to use, I have to imagine they're at least A tier. These things are so fun to use, to just like chuck them at someone and then just see the chain blast go off. I have to imagine with fully upgraded explosive perks that these would actually be really devastating, but by the time you get all your explosive perks, you're probably using like Annabelle, Thump Thump, so. But extremely easy to make. The only problem is, if you're making them, you did give a perk for that, so. But I wanted to give a shout out to the MFC cluster. C-57 Avenger. So I've used this, and I think unlike the minigun, which is actually kind of unusable, I think this is somewhere in A tier. The thing is, ammo's no problem. The only issue with this gun is meeting the requirements. But once you do, you can VATS heads. It's not a super effective spray and pray weapon because its ammo capacity is sort of small. And if you're using it for more precise shots, you would just use like a 45 auto. But there's like an argument to be made that if you get this, because it's kind of easy to get this early on, if you know how to reach it quickly, that you could kind of just use it for like Cazadors or something and it'd be fine. But it's still not that great. I'd still rather use the shoulder mounted or Fido. Speaking of, shoulder mounted is S tier. Doing like 50 damage per shot and then autoing is just crazy. You can get away with JFP on these too, so it's like you're like doing roughly 50 damage, so it's like what? I'm not gonna do the math, but it's like you're doing like at least like 70-ish damage per shot. And it's like super common ammo. The upgrades are available the moment you're in the Divide, so the moment you get one of these from the Divide, you can just go back to the commissary and get the upgrades. Really good. And 75 guns is fairly low requirements for how good this weapon is. Out of the big guns in New Vegas, this is one of my favorite. I have big guns enabled, which makes it so that you have to raise big guns and guns to get this to work right. Till you get the perks and stuff, but it's like more than worth it. It's really fun. Incinerator. Dude, the incinerator sucks. Dude, I have burn damage rework enabled, which makes it so that you and enemies take more damage from burn. And it like, Cook will like actually kill me. Like pretty quickly, like with the flamer. But I've picked up the incinerator with like 100 big gun skill, which it works off of now. And it just doesn't kill things. Like I can shoot fiends with it. I can shoot like Cazadors, like things that have no DT. I can shoot like humans with it. I can shoot geckos and Cazadors with it, and it just doesn't kill them. The blast itself doesn't do much damage, and the fire damage is just really bad. Even with like buffed, modded damage, Incinerator is awful. Finding flamer ammo is really difficult and inconvenient too. And then like on top of that, it's super heavy. It's got a high strength requirement. It's just like all around the incinerator is a really bad weapon. It's a shame. Plasma caster. I think I don't know where I put this originally, but it's S tier. It does too much damage per shot with a good enough crit rate, max charge ammo, plasma spaz to like not be good. It's essentially like a way stronger plasma rifle, functionally. Instead of being like a Gatling laser equivalent to plasma, it's more like a stronger plasma rifle. Shout out to when it was the plasma rifle. I gotta take a sip. My mouth tastes like blood. It's not a good sign. Yeah, just ridiculous damage, ridiculous crit, max charge ammo, plasma spaz, VATS, yada yada yada. The only problem with the plasma caster really is just accessibility. Finding a guaranteed plasma caster I think is impossible. You find them in the Divide, and you can find it in the Silver Rush sometimes. Actually, I think there's a guaranteed one in the Silver Rush always because it's a part of the decoration. And with no mods, you can just pick it up and steal it from the bathroom. The Smitty Special is right there with Pew Pew being gatekeeped. The Smitty Special, I was using this on a run with no DT pass-through, which essentially makes it so that DT acts as pure subtraction, and you don't get to do 20% damage. So, the Smitty Special does about 30 damage per shot, and then even fighting enemies that were taking out like half of that damage with raw subtraction, the Smitty Special was still just chewing them up. The Smitty Special is so ridiculous. It's a pure auto plasma caster that's dealing pretty ridiculous damage for how quickly it fires, and the fact that it is completely auto. Guaranteed location, not that hard to get. I think it only has 75 energy weapon requirement too in vanilla, which is insane. The one problem with it, the one thing that keeps it from being like the best weapon in the game, is that it uses microfusion cells. If it used ECP, this thing would be better than the Gatling laser, but it uses microfusion cells. And like chewing through it as quickly as it does, there's no way to use max charge. It's just your gun will break in like one battle. Not to mention the amount of time and money it takes to actually go around and get all the energy weapon off the map, convert it all to max charge just so that you can use it for like 20 minutes. It's completely just not practical. I think the best way to use the Smitty and Plasma Caster would be to get heavyweight, pack rat, and then carry around max charge that you use for the Plasma Caster and bulk for the Smitty Special. But, yeah, but no. If there was a way to get actually endless ammo, like, quickly and conveniently, this thing would be, like, kind of a better MF Hybrid Breeder. It's insane how powerful the Smitty Special is. Spurtle Wood. So I dumped on this. But I think that it's sort of got its merits compared to the Gatling laser. Wherever it went. Does more damage, has less spread, fires quicker, has a lower strength requirements. This is all good. I don't think it beats the raw magazine of the Gatling laser, but it's sort of like a thing where Jay Sawyer was going over, where like weapons of a comparable power level should have differences to set them apart, right? And unlike the minigun, which is just bad compared to the Avenger, I think that they both have their merits. They're both S tier. And the other thing that the Spurtle Wood has is that it's accessible very early. I actually think there's a merit to make where you use bulk for the Gatling laser and then max charge on this for tough enemies. Sort of like the Kazaster situation. Or maybe the reverse, whatever you want to do. But it's better than I said. Grenade machine gun. S tier. So if you haven't noticed, when I converted the weapons to big guns, I started trying them out. Grenade machine gun is fucking nuts. It's insane. 25 mil isn't quite as like common as 40 mil, but where you can buy it, it's available in more bulk. It's easier to get high explosive 25 mil. The only problem really with the grenade machine gun is not blowing yourself up, but even then it's surprisingly low radius for how powerful the explosion is. This is like not related, but I use Fallout 4 power armor, and when you do that, you can crouch jump and get like a super high jump to mimic the jetpack from Fallout 4. And doing that and letting go with the grenade machine gun is just the craziest fucking thing ever. I still think even without the ability to do that, it's S tier, but I was down playing the grenade machine gun. This thing is also available like really early. I think you can get this in like Knight Taurus's armory from the Brotherhood, which is like the first hour of the game. The requirements to wield it are pretty high. I think it's like 8 strength and 100 explosives or something like that. And it is annoying, not difficult, but it's going to be expensive to maintain the ammo and the condition of the weapon. But yeah, it does too much damage. If you, I think this is like the step up from Thump Thump. If you don't want to use Annabelle or Fat Man. It's really good. Mercy is actually even better, but again, if you can reach Mercy, you don't need it. So it's kind of a weapon that's fun to use. It's very fun to use, but it's unnecessary. We're actually going to put it like at the top here, behind this. Okay, final 3 weapons. This is going to be really quick. I play with Fallout 3 weapon restoration, so I thought I'd give a quick shout out to the 3 weapons I use from it. The first is the auto axe from Fallout 3. The way that the person balanced it is they made the auto axe have a high crit chance, sort of like the industrial hand, but it doesn't ignore DT or DR like the chainsaw and thermic lance are supposed to. So it's sort of like a physical industrial hand that doesn't ignore DT. Available very early in certain guaranteed spots. It's very cool. Still outclassed by the chainsaw though. The Dragoon assault rifle, the Chinese assault rifle, and the assault rifle from Fallout 3 are pretty bad. They break down too quickly in Fallout New Vegas. Maybe they broke down that quickly in 3, but I never noticed it. They deal pretty good damage. They have low weapon requirements. I think the max one is 50. I think the Infiltrator is also in New Vegas now. They're all pretty middling though. They have very low damage. They break down insanely quickly. Insanely quickly. I can't stress that enough. And they generally just use the weapons that are in the game. However, the combat shotgun is S tier. It is Baby's Riot Shotgun, but it's available very early on. Most fiends have it. Most fiends have a good chance to have it, and then it's like a DPS machine like the Riot Shotgun. The combat shotgun from Fallout 3 Restoration is nuts. Wanted to give a shout out to it because you can technically spawn. I don't know if you can spawn in, but I think you can technically. Like, it's in the game files. It just had to be re-enabled. So I thought I'd give a shout out to it. Fallout 3 Combat Shotgun is one of my favorite New Vegas weapons. XD. 50 minutes! What? Okay, we gotta go. Bye!